Let's crack the code on one of the most famous culinary mysteries on the entire planet. Think about this. Every single day, around 2.4 million Big Macs are sold across 40,000 restaurants in over 100 countries. That is massive. And if you've ever had one, you know exactly what to expect, right? Well, that sameness, that absolute global consistency, it actually doesn't come from the beef or the bread. It comes entirely from that pale orange, slightly tangy, super creamy spread right between the buns. So today, in this explainer, we're decoding the Big Mac. We're going to explore exactly how this secret sauce really works, going all the way from the kitchen counter to some seriously massive industrial food science.
Okay, so let's dive into our culinary detective story. First, we'll look at the Thousand Island myth. Second, we're deconstructing the actual recipe. Third, we'll get into the science of scale. Fourth, we'll trace the great recipe swap. And finally, making it at home. Section 1. The Thousand Island myth. Shattering a fast food misconception.
We really need to start by shattering the single biggest misconception out there about fast food. Let me just ask you this directly. Is Big Mac sauce actually just Thousand Island dressing? I mean, if you jump onto Facebook or Reddit, you are going to see raging debates. Copycat recipe theorists absolutely insist that McDonald's just slaps some Thousand Island dressing on a burger and calls it a gay. It is a wildly pervasive internet rumor. And, because they look so incredibly similar, two sauces sitting in that exact same slot in your memory easily get filed under the exact same name.
But here is the smoking gun that proves that rumor is completely false. Seriously, if you go open a bottle of Thousand Island dressing from your fridge right now and read the label, you'll find ketchup or tomato paste listed right near the top. That's actually where it gets its pinkish color. But look at the official Big Mac sauce profile. There is absolutely zero tomato, zero ketchup anywhere in the formula, none. Plus, Thousand Island usually contains Worcestershire sauce, which Big Mac sauce definitely does not. Their ingredient profiles literally split in completely different directions.
Section 2. Deconstructing the recipe. The culinary components.
So if it isn't Thousand Island, what exactly goes into it? Well, thanks to former McDonald's corporate chefs like Mike Harach and Dan Crudrow, and McDonald's own recent transparency campaigns, the core culinary components are totally public knowledge now. It starts off with a really heavy mayonnaise base. To that, you add sweet pickle relish for a nice soft crunch and just a touch of sweetness. Then comes a sharp mustard, something like a Dusseldorf or standard yellow, along with white wine vinegar. That vinegar is absolutely crucial because it provides an acidic tang that cuts right through the heavy fat of the mayo and the burger patties. And finally, you whisk in a very specific blend of spices: onion powder, garlic powder, white pepper, and paprika.
Now, the most crucial takeaway here comes straight from McDonald's manufacturing process. To quote them directly, the orange yellow comes from paprika extract and mustard brand, not tomato. That is so key. The paprika acts as a natural coloring agent while bringing in just a mild pepperiness, and the mustard brings that spark and the classic yellow tint. When those combine with the white mayo, boom, you get that iconic pale pinkish-orange hue that has literally been fooling copycats into reaching for the ketchup bottle for decades.
Section 3. The science of scale. Engineering global consistency. Now, having a recipe is one thing, but engineering global consistency, that is a whole different ballgame. If you mix mayonnaise, relish, and vinegar in your own kitchen right now, it'll taste amazing, sure, but it's only going to hold up for about 2 days. By day 3, the emulsion breaks. You end up with this unappetizing oil slick on top, and all the relish just sinks straight to the bottom. So, how on earth does McDonald's prevent this? Enter industrial stabilizers, specifically xanthan gum and propylene glycol alginate, or PGA. When the sauce is blended in these massive giant vats, these ingredients step in to do the heavy lifting. The xanthan gum basically builds an invisible net that holds every single oil droplet perfectly in place so they can't merge and float to the surface. And meanwhile, the PGA thickens the sauce up just right so it clings perfectly the second it hits the bun.
This food science magic is absolutely 100% necessary for their logistics. I mean, think about the scale. The commercial sauce has to remain perfectly textured for 3 entire weeks at 4 degrees Celsius. And it gets packed into these tiny little 43-gram foil cups. If the seal is even slightly off, oxidation changes the flavor in just 48 hours. This sauce literally has to survive a brutal cold chain. It goes from the factory, into refrigerated trucks, into the walk-in coolers of 40,000 different restaurants, right up to the exact moment it's squeezed onto your burger. And that right there is exactly why the Big Mac you eat in Houston tastes flawlessly identically the same as the one you eat in Honolulu.
Section 4. The Great Recipe Swap. A timeline of the sauce.
So let's trace how this all evolved, because maintaining this massive system hasn't exactly always been smooth sailing.
The story actually starts back in 1967 in Uniontown, Pennsylvania. A franchisee named Jim Delegati needed a burger big enough for these hungry steel mill workers, so he stacked 2 patties and created a special tangy sauce to hold it all together. And it was a massive hit. But as the Big Mac expanded nationally, different franchises were actually using slightly different versions of the sauce. So in 1972, CEO Ray Kroc brought in a California company called Golden State Foods to unify the recipe into one single industrial standard. And it worked beautifully. Well, right up until 1991, when the formula was quietly changed, very likely just to cut costs. Loyal customers definitely noticed the difference, but the company just marched on, serving a subpar sauce for well over a decade.
But this is where the story gets super fascinating. Flash forward 13 years to 2004. Former CEO Fred Turner, who was fully retired by then, tasted the current sauce. He knew instantly, on the spot, it was not the Big Mac he remembered from the 1970s. The craziest part? No single document inside McDonald's actually had the original formula detailed enough to rebuild it from scratch. No way! So, Turner literally had to personally track down the original supplier out in California to help bring the authentic 70s sauce back to life. One single man's taste memory literally saved the flagship burger of a global empire. How wild is that?
Section 5. Making it at home. DIY hacks and copycats.
Now that the core ingredients aren't a total mystery anymore, everyday fans have figured out exactly how to hack the recipe for their own diets. And it's so incredibly easy to customize at home once you really understand that underlying flavor architecture. For instance, traditional Big Mac sauce isn't vegan because mayonnaise relies on egg yolks. But you can so easily swap out the standard mayonnaise for a vegan mayo, and boom, you get a completely plant-based version that tastes almost totally identical. Or let's say you're looking for a more macro-friendly fitness hack. You can literally swap the mayo base entirely for non-fat plain Greek yogurt. You keep all those exact same flavor agents, the relish, the mustard, the vinegar, and the spices, and you still get that perfect tangy, sweet, creamy experience of a Big Mac, but packed with protein. It's a total game changer.
So, what does this all mean? Well, the ingredient list is totally public now. Former chefs have essentially handed us the ratios. But the real secret of the secret sauce, it was honestly never really about the ingredients at all. It's all about the process spec. It's the xanthan gum, the PGA, the perfectly calibrated pH levels, and that massive uninterrupted cold chain that stabilizes millions of batches flawlessly every single day. So I'll leave you with this to chew on. Knowing what goes into it is one thing, but can your kitchen at home ever truly replicate the absolute marvel of industrial food science that makes a Big Mac taste perfectly, wonderfully, the exact same, no matter where you are in the world? Thanks so much for joining me in this explainer. I'll see you next time.